I don't know why, but I felt led to make a video about an experience I had 2 days ago. For those of you out of my entire three subscribers who don't know me, I'm a Christian. I love Jesus a lot. He kind of saved my life. And I've been a Christian for most of my life. But in junior high, my faith definitely grew a lot more. And as I went to a public high school, it was challenged even more so past that. But especially recently, after a lot, I've been learning more about who God is and kind of getting to know Him for myself rather than just hearing what other people tell me about Him and okay, that's a cool story, but I've been getting to know Him personally on my own. And it's not been like an overnight thing. It's almost like I realized all of a sudden I'm starting to know more of who God is, and it was a process that took a long time. And in any way, I don't want to try to make myself look good by this, but it takes time of actually setting aside things that you want to do if you want to spend time with God and you want to actually get to know Him. You wouldn't get to know your best friend overnight over one conversation, so it takes time to actually talk to them to get to know Him. And it's not always expected. Sometimes you find out something about God, or He'll tell you something about Him that's whoa, I didn't know that. People haven't told me that about you before, but it's true. And if He tells you Himself, then that's true. And I was the kind of person who never really set aside time to actually read my Bible, to actually pray, to actually just be honest with God. And I feel like that's something that's so important that a lot of people forget. But when you do, it's not even a forced thing. Just start talking like you talk to somebody else, and eventually you'll feel that He's there. Because He wants to talk to you so badly, and because He made you, you're His child, you're His love, and He loves you with all of His heart, and that's why He literally came down and He died for you, because He wanted you to be able to experience His presence and to be able to experience the Holy Spirit. And it's sad that a lot of people miss that. And I don't know what stage of life you're in right now, so I can't judge until I know your story, and I'm not going to judge anyway. I'm not one to do that, and I have no right. But I guess all I can say is whatever you've heard about Christianity before that's maybe turned you away, that's made you think that they hate you for something that you are, or how do I say this? If you felt cast out by Christians, I just want to say that honestly, Christians aren't perfect, and I feel like sometimes we're the ones that need the most saving. That's why we come to God. And people you're going to meet, churches aren't going to be perfect, people aren't going to be perfect, but none of us are. But the only person who really is perfect is God, and He's the one who can actually understand you for who you are, for what you've been through, because He knows it all, and He really just wants to love on you. He just wants to hold you when things get tough, and He just wants to pour out all that He has for you. And so if you're in a place that you feel like you're alone, or you feel like you don't really know what to do and you don't have anybody to talk to, I just say talk to God. And you may just sit there alone feeling like, what does it even sound like? What does his voice sound like? And honestly, I don't really know for certain. I just know that I've heard Him, and I know that I've felt it, and that I've made a lot of decisions in my life based off of what I've heard. And so a few of my friends have asked me what does it sound like? How do you know it's the voice of God? And honestly, there's so many ways to know. But I think for me, one of the most personal ways that I'm sure that, okay, that was the voice of God, is if it agrees with something that the Bible says, because that's His word. That's the word that He gave us. And so, if you hear something in your thoughts, it's sometimes you hear people say, oh, and I audibly heard the voice of God. It's not always that. If it is that, that's amazing. I'm not putting that down at all. That's I would want to experience that someday. But sometimes you just hear it in your thoughts, and it's a thought that's not your own. I think that's the best way I can describe it. But if you hear something and you're thinking, was that God or was that me? I don't know where I was. What was I talking about? The voice of God. Okay, I'm back. So, yeah, like I said, the best way I can describe it is a thought that's not your own. A thought that you're like, hey, I never thought about that before. Or even something that's just so soothing. Like, when I was in, like, 5th grade, I remember Mom talking to me about, like, she's like, okay, honey, this is what the Holy Spirit is. He can talk to you. He can tell you things you don't know. And then I went downstairs and just started praying, not really knowing what. I was like 10 years old, and I just heard something that I thought that wasn't my own. And I think I was better at hearing the voice of God then than sometimes I am now, because I'm so cluttered in my thoughts. But if you really just erase anything else and you just listen, that's, I think, when you can hear him the most. And so little 10-year-old me just heard the words, I love you. And that's it. And then I was like, I ran upstairs. I was so excited. And that's, again, it reminds me, like, childlike faith is such a beautiful thing. And just having no doubts, no concerns, like, just believing what you hear and running with it because you know that it's true. And that's what I did. I ran upstairs and told my mom, like, Mom, I think I heard the voice of God. And she said, well, what did he say? And I just said, he just said, I love you. And she was like, that was the voice of God. And I think that was the first time I ever heard him. And something else he's told me is, as I'm learning more about him and more about who he is and more about how I should be challenging myself in a Christian life, one thing he told me that I always think back to whenever I'm feeling like I've been striving too hard for too long, or whenever there's a problem going on, I just think that he told me this one time. He said, no matter what you learn about me, no matter what you like, no matter what you hear or what you know is true, no matter what I tell you to do or what I tell you not to do, just know at the center of it all is the fact that I love you. And I think that for me, that's been something that's been so freeing. And just being completely honest, it's broken a lot of things that have scared me. And so just knowing that he loves me, and that's the reason that he's guiding me through life at all. And that's the reason that he wants to spend time with me, and that he wants me to spend time with him, is the fact at the very core is that he just loves me, and I love him so much. So, like I said, I don't know where you are in your walk of faith, or even if you're not a Christian, and I don't know why you clicked on my video, but I feel like God's telling you that he loves you so, so much, even when you feel like there's nobody else that could love you. And he wants you to know that he just wants you to spend time with him, and that he just wants you to be his friend, and he wants to make you his friend. And I think that if you can just know that in your heart, that there's somebody who loves you, and honestly, there's somebody that's praying for you. I'm going to be praying for you. Like, really, like, if I tell you, even if you know me or if you don't know me, if I say I'm praying for you, I'm actually going to be praying for you. I have, this is my little war room, and these are all my prayer requests. Those are my prayer requests. Those are my answers. You can see there's a lot on each one. And that's not even the only page I have. I have pages of those. And so if you need prayer, comment down below. Or really, if anybody watched this video, I'm going to be praying for you. As soon as I click the stop button and upload this, I'm going to go and pray about that. So just know that there's somebody on your side, no matter what you're going through. And that God really loves you. And I think the whole reason I even wanted to start making this video is because something I feel like people forget about God too much is that he is joy, and that he is where joy comes from. Not happiness. Happiness is temporary. Joy is forever. And I was watching this video by Abby Stumball, and she's a pastor who's spoken at Bethel a few times, and she was saying joy is a fruit of the Spirit. And it would be weird if we see God as somebody who's always very stoic and serious and always disappointed at you, then we'd have to step out of his nature, or out of who we think that he is, in order to experience joy. We would have to step out of who we think he is in order to experience joy. And I think that's one of the most surprising things. People are like, wait, that's true. At least that's what I thought. And we forget how much God is joyful, and he's not always like this serious God who's angry at you. He's joyful, and if nothing she said, if you don't hear God making jokes with you or laughing with you or smiling at you when you see his face, then you're missing a huge part of who God is. And when I found that out, it sets me free. And I went to this park that's by my house, and I just sat by this tree that means a lot to me. I might make a video about it later, but one of the things that happened on that walk, I was there for like an hour, and my parents luckily weren't worried about me. It's because God wanted me to be there. But I heard God tell me a joke, and we were laughing together, and it was the first time I ever heard God laugh. And when I realized, like, was that a joke? The trees just started shaking. Like, you know when you see somebody laughing, you just see them shaking. The trees were just shaking like that, and I could hear him laughing with me. And it was beautiful, and I don't want anybody to not experience that someday and not experience hearing the voice of God. And so I think a lot of these words, I don't know where they're coming from. I prayed before I made this that God would give me the words to say, so I believe that he has a word for you, whoever's watching this. And I just want you to know that you're loved, that God loves you, that I'm praying for you. And what's my other point? God is a joyful God, and he's where joy comes from, and all good things come from him. Things that are evil and are not good, or things that are hurting you inside, those are not of him. Those are of the devil, and those are the enemy, and you gotta kick him in the face, because I hate the enemy. He hates us too. It's okay. It's this is maxing me out. It's not letting me record anymore. Okay, God, I think you're trying to tell me to stop. So I just want you to know that, and without making this video too long, I hope you have an amazing day, and God bless you.